budget workshop. I mean, we're live.
Sounds like it.
Okay. So our third budget workshop, focusing on the program component. Turn it over to Ms. Adams to walk us through the information, or Karen, whoever has the.
I think you wanted to give the start, right?
So, as you know, we reviewed our our capital components already. So tonight we're looking at, so you do have the admin and capital in your packets. Should be on the right side there if you want to refresh your memory. So I just wanted to get those to you. We'll take a look at the program budget and then we can talk a little bit about the overall impacts. Michelle Crandall and I also are prepared to have any discussion that you would like around the increase in the special ed costs that we're seeing that are impacting the budget and the programming. All right, so everybody has their capital. So do you want to take us a little bit through, or do you want to do, I gave this to you ahead of time to review, so we'll kind of go through some of the highlights as I had said to you, if you want to go back towards the summer back.
The summary page starts on page 7. That's what that that yellow line is. And all that does is it kind of little group all of your teaching all in one, which comprises of your regular ed, your special ed, your OC ed, that's all in one. Your instructional media, that comprises of your library, your IT people, that's all in one. And then your people services, of course, is your nurse, your guidance, your social workers, any counselors we have, and as well as your athletics and your co-curricular. So what that does, it just summarizes your prior 6 pages that are all line by line by line. It comprises them to those main categories. And then transportation's at the end and our retiree health insurance. So is there anything that stuck out that anybody had questions about? We tried to get it to you ahead of time. The benefit of having the detail pages up front, that gives you any information for significant changes or anything we may have adjusted. For example, all of our summer days we took out of this budget and we put it in the American Rescue Plan grant, which was 170 days of summer PD. So that was a significant amount. Julie and I've gone through here and tried to reduce it as best we can. There's really nothing big other than the biggest portion, of course, is our health insurance increase and our special ed costs are our major factors. We don't know what our negotiations are going to be, so we tried to budget accordingly. You see there, Heidi frowning.
Just looking at.
Just looking, okay.
So the, you know, obviously we'll be negotiating the next contract. At this point in time, we just took the current increase just to kind of see where that would land us. And that is about an additional 1.1 million. That is not including the health insurance increase, which is, and I gave you also that piece of it. I did share with you our changes in our special ed needs. And as you know, this year, director in terms of really looking at in detail at our costs for programming, both within the district and outside of the district. We had some increases in costs that weren't planned. In addition, we've had some additional needs of students as well. So I did share with you a document that showed that next year we anticipate if we continue to send the current students out of district as well as students with additional needs that we're seeing and anticipating to be out of district, that would be an increase of 591,000 to send students out. We did put together some numbers. We do believe that we could add some programming in district that would require the hiring of one additional teacher to add a 612 in the elementary. And if we hire an additional special ed teacher for the high school, that would help us with additional reading, specialized reading sections that we need, and or sections of resource room and direct consultant teacher and ICT, which is integrated consultant teacher, which is something that we have the need to move towards. When I came here 4 years ago, that was something that was on the radar, but with COVID, we were behind on that, but it's as you know, we've been working with some different areas of special education and New York State, and we really need to be moving in that direction. So we would add, if we add 2 additional teachers, teaching assistants, we have the need for 4 TAs, some additional supplies, classroom furniture, and we also could look at a 0.6 speech teacher, which would help us relieve us of the need for $14,000 in outside contracting of services, which we can't meet the needs of right now. So that would have been budgeted for 14,000 next year. We could bring that back. That 0.6 would help serve some of those kids that we would be bringing back to district, as well as we could use that person for some CPSE work, and we could be billing the county. Did I sum that up? Mrs. Crandall, thank you. And feel free to jump in if you want. We should probably hold you up to the table.
We should have came to the table with them, just slide yourselves in.
Right, right. We could move you up. So I think I covered most of that, and if we did bring some of our students back into the district, we would reduce our out-of-district costs from 1.254 million to 447,000. And then with our additional in-district costs, we would be only at 954,000. So we'd see a cost savings of close to 300,000 by bringing some of those students back to the district. Mrs. Crandall's been working quite a bit at looking at the curriculum that we would need. So all of that is included in here. We also have some additional needs, not only here in the out-of-district placement, but we also do have quite a bit of training and professional development needs in the area of special education, in the area of MTSS, foundationally our tier 1 support, which, as you know, we've been working on with Dr. Brock, our consultant in the district. We were originally at a little bit of a greater deficit, and Mrs. McGregor and I have squeezed all the dollars we can. We have diverted quite a few of our professional development, some of our consultant work, textbooks into the ARP grant. Alrighty, so I did give you that list.
And so to piggyback on what Ms. Adams was saying, so that the new special ed teachers and students, the 0.6, so those are in these numbers. So we've got the 4 TAs in here. We've got
Okay.
2 special ed teachers and the 0.6. And additionally, that's bringing the aides would have 18 aides all at full-time status. So that's 3 additional aides that are currently part-time would be up to full-time. So again, benefits with those people as well. The only person that would be a 0.6.
with the addition of TAs, I thought we were gonna be able to eliminate some of the aides. That's not going.
So we already took, so there, we have a reduced need. So TAs do not replace aides.
No, I
But-
understand that, but I thought,
So we have a reduction of 4 aides planned, based on need. That already would be a reduction. So that reduced number is already in here, so if, we don't have any aides interested in the TA positions, we would need to reduce 4 positions, part-time aides for next year already.
So
Okay.
currently we have a total of 22 aides. In this budget, there's 8.
okay, so that's already.
5.
But we currently, are using aides for recess. We did not plan to do that for next year for supervising recess. So that is a conversation that we would need to continue. You know, it's something that, Mr. Fish is looking at. He's working with the scheduling committee, and a scheduling consultant this year to really look for efficiencies in our scheduling. And, we just want to we believe that we have enough, special area classes to cover the teacher planning time. And that, so that teachers could go back to, I know it's been a while, but it's my understanding that teachers have supervised recess in the past, so that is something that we're looking at right now. We do not have aides in this budget right now. We're hoping to get a better idea of that in the next few weeks. We're doing what we can to avoid adding anything else in here. But I did want to point out, so obviously we still have this deficit of 684,000 when you look at this revenue, our revenue projections and our proposed expenses.
No, it's in here somewhere. I'm sorry.
I know we have a lot of,
It was on top of the packet.
Started.
so Karen, do you want to take them through, just talk a little bit about this?
Well, first of all, I'd like to ask, did you all have a chance to review the tax cap levy calculation and my explanation so you could understand why we are at negative this year? Because that's a first. I mean, that's part of the, building project dropping off early and getting such a great rate on it. You know, we do get, 80% aid back on our projects, but you got to understand the state aid calculation. They assume your debt is at a certain interest rate. Therefore, and we get a good rate. So we're actually getting more aid back than our debt. Therefore, we have no exclusions to help offset the tax cap levy calculations. And this is why, as you know, the TRS didn't go up 2% or the ERS didn't. And we have no exclusion. Our bus aid is greater than our lease liability. Our capital debt is less than our state aid. So sorry, but it's great for the taxpayers, but we told them that this project would cost them anything, and there's your proof. We don't even have a single exclusion that we can put on this tax cap levy.
Yep.
Good side is we got over $800,000 additional state aid funding this year because of the whole foundation aid ratio. We were very, very excited about that, and I thought that, yes, this is gonna be one of my best budgets ever. And then we got into the real numbers, so,
In healthcare.
yeah, you know. So our state aid numbers look really good. They went up a significant amount from the last year. But then again, we have the deficit. Our tuition for Vermont students has gone down, as you know, through the years. We just don't give the students coming in. They have school of choice now, so they don't all choose to come here. I did put less towards of our fund balance. I don't feel that it's that strong this year. And again, our auditors have always told us to keep that number for the tax levy lower than we had it for 525,000 last year. So I tried to reduce that. If we can get it within a good working number, we can look at putting more money towards the debt service, or we can look at maybe putting more for the ERS. My concern with the ERS is we can't put more towards the ERS, the employee retirement system debt. We can only put towards what we're gonna pay. So even if I had 300,000 to put towards it, my debt's only 185,000. You can't do that. That's not legal. So these are all the things that we've got to juggle. So
So another thing to point out for our newer board members is that a few years ago, the decision was made when we were receiving some of the ARP and ESSER funds, the CARES Act and ARP, was to utilize that to add 6 faculty members to the staff. And so we added 3 at the elementary, one for counseling, a middle level counselor, and 2 at the high school, 1 in ELA and 1 in the math department. And that was to help remediate COVID, the impact of COVID on learning loss and the social emotional types of issues that we associate with COVID, and to help try to get everyone back on track and remediate those gaps. We never had all of those we did not have all 6 in those ARP grants. So we have carried some of those along. We've had, again, some additional unplanned expenses, or some of our consultant fees have been higher than we anticipated, and both the MTSS, behavior, we've used her for some behavior consult. Again, all of the things that ARP is intended for. But we had originally the 1 counselor and 2 teachers, correct, written into the ARP. We do not have enough to sustain that for 1 more year. As a matter of fact, I was going to we have a great need for the math program. We do not have a comprehensive K-8 vertically aligned math program, and for next gen. And so I would like to use that. Will probably be about 40 to 50,000 plus professional development that's related, similar to the ELA. And I would like to utilize some of that remaining grant for the math program, because that will be a very sustainable and long-lasting investment. So we moved in addition, we've taken textbooks out. Any of our textbooks would come out of the ARP grant. 170 days of professional development that normally would be in this budget. We have really trimmed this almost as far as we can go. And I would like to really bring to your attention that this will impact next year, because we have to put textbooks back in. We're going to need to add back in some of this professional development that we're going to be utilizing. So we will see an increase in the program budget, just because we'll be adding those back in. So I want to be clear that this will help us now. This has helped us a bit get this number lower, but it will result in an increase next year. So I just, I want to be clear about that, if that's the route that we go. But we've got to have a discussion about how to get this remaining 684,000 deficit covered. We need to get that to 0.
I was on the board when we made the decision to have those additional positions added to this gap. And it was very clearly stated at the time that they were dependent upon that grant money, and when that ran out, the positions, if it had not been addressed by attrition, the position would have to be sunsetted. So that is, I think, a lot of the positions that we're talking about, those additional slots, were ones that we added in, knowing full well that if we did not get attrition, we would be in this position, where we're actually having to pull them back and affect my staff that way.
So we did have the attrition of the 1 counselor. Last year we did add we did have, some elementary teacher vacancies. We did choose to fill those at the time. We also, the decision was made, to go with two sections of universal pre-K, so we only get funding for 20 students, which is the equivalent of one section. So that's something also that I would propose that we consider is, currently, so we have 21 students. We get funding for 20. If we went to one section of 20, we would have a lottery for those positions if we had over 20 applicants. We would have to keep, if you have 18 students to 20, we have to have 2 aides in there. So we may not necessarily, we still may need both aides, but, right there, that could be a section. I did also include, just so you could see to help with this decision, some of the, Mr. Fish put together our current enrollment, in the top chart, so it looks like this one right here. Yeah. I know, I gave you a lot of. So these are our current sections. So you can see where we,
Do we
That's next.
have projected enrollment for pre-K for next year?
yep, no, so Mr. Fish, that's a little later, right? We'll be doing registration and some intakes
Projections
for
for next year's
pre-K.
pre-K.
We've got pretty good numbers, but they're not finalized yet.
Okay,
Process.
right, but it's not over
I'm learning
20, yeah.
No, that's not, I just was curious if we had a projected number of pre-Kers.
These are pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah. The 40 might be a little high, but.
For kindergarten, right, so I put in 40, we have 39 kindergarten this year. Our kindergarten, screenings will be coming up in about a month, I believe. And, historically, it's my understanding that we get a fair amount of additions in addition to our pre-K numbers that we've had.
We have the two sections of the pre-K, so we know those kids are coming. So
Right, the 21, correct. We'll have at least 21. So, I also, Mr. Switzer is working on, so it's a little more work, but Mr. Switzer has started, I've asked him to go through, looking at our course requests for next year. We do have some additional sectioning that, we've also had, especially in ELA and math at the secondary level, taking a look at, those sections to see how we could create some efficiencies there in our scheduling. We do have relatively small class size in some of our ELA and math at the 7th and 8th grade. We had the 3 sections so that we could, so if you have 3 sections of ELA or math, you really need 3 sections in the other, just to kind of, just for efficiency and how you build the schedule. So we've done that in 7th and 8th grade. 7th grade is a large, a little bit of a larger group. They started out at 54. I think it's a little less than that right now. So we could, go back to 2 sections there. We can scale back. Our AIS classes are very small right now, so I think we can, could possibly increase the size for AIS. So I think we have some possible efficiencies there that we could take a look at. And we're also, I asked Mr. Switzer to take a look at our elective courses and our enrollment in our electives so that, what I'd like to do is work a little bit, with them this week. And if you would like, we can obviously have some more conversation. As much as you would like to right now and answer any questions that you have, but I think, we would have a better idea and we could, present some more definitive recommendations, next week at the board meeting. We'd like to have some budget conversation there.
But this is not an engine for me, just a question I had when you were talking about it. The pre-K, you say we're funded for 20 and up to 18, and then from 18 to 20, you need another 8. So it's sort of like 2 kids at the tipping point. So could we have more kids just not get funding for them?
Yes,
So
and
we
that's
could
what we're
have
doing
20.
right now. We're paying for that additional class.
But I meant in that
But it's
classroom,
capped at 20,
Is
right?
it
You can't
capped
go
at
over
20?
20.
or can we have 20 that we get funding for, but the 21st could come at no addition? I mean. no-
Yes, however, I think, in pre-K,
I understand.
when you're getting to 20, that's quite a few. I don't know if I'd recommend having more than 20 in one classroom. And that's why we chose to have 2 classrooms this year. Originally, I think we had 24, 23 or 24 start out, we're to 21.
It just seems if we're at 21 and that's just one kid over, that we could make that work. I think is
Right.
what we're saying.
Unless it was, you physically cannot have more than 20, but it
I'll have to
just seemed
double
odd.
check that.
Just seemed odd that you could have up to 18 with 1 aid, and then with 2 more, you need
Another eight.
whole person for
Yeah.
the
Right.
kids.
Right,
So
I think
just
we'd have to
curious.
look into the regulation about,
Yeah.
is there
It's not a game changer.
a recommendation for, a max class?
I just remember the 18 that you had to have another 8, but I don't remember hearing anything else.
I'll double check that.
Just curious.
And you guys can see on the revenue sheet, it's right here what our UPK funding is. It's the 177,140. It's the next line below your foundation aid. And just so you know, that with the current staffing we have, that doesn't even cover the 2 people with salary and benefits, much less supplies or anything else. So it's kind of funny to me that that's up to 20 students. I'm not sure what their rationale is, because you can look at another school much larger than ours that still has one section, their funding is a lot different. So I'm not sure how the math works there, but that is our total funding. That was our funding this year. We didn't put it on there, but we did take the teacher out of the account because we weren't sure that we were gonna get the grant in time, because the prior year with the prior superintendent didn't happen. So we didn't put it on here, but it's on here this year, so you see what the exact funding is, and that number stays the same regardless.
So, and, something else to point out, just so you know, and I'm learning about this too, so we have to confirm our numbers, in the middle of the year, and one of the things, that we need to do is we have to put an RFP out there for any other, programs that would qualify in the community and share a portion of this 177,000 with them. So I believe it's, I want to say 10%, up to 10%.
Yeah.
I'll double check that number, but so realizing that if someone responds, we have to show proof of the RFP and that we've put out there, we have to say the number of eligible programs that are in the community. So that number could be reduced by approximately 17,000 if someone qualified for that full 10%. Just so you're aware of that.
I think it's capped at 20.
I think up to 2, I think that was the magic number.
This is what it looks like.
Yeah.
That's just Google, but
Yeah, we'll double check, but I can get back to you on that. So I think, right, that number basically dictates if, how we would put that out there, if we would have to say, we're going to have a lottery for 20 spots or how that would work. Do you have any questions? I know we've thrown a lot at you recently. So on one aspect, we're talking about a possible staff reduction, but we would need to add, it's basically a reallocation of some of the funds.
Yep.
To special ed.
We've been moving in that direction for the last several years. We knew this adjustment was going to happen. It was coming. And I personally feel that strongly that we need to be in the driver's seat as to how that money is budgeted and allocated. I do feel that we'd be in a better position than if somebody comes in and tells us how we need to do
Right.
it, that's not budgeted. At least this way, we can plan for those challenges.
Was a targeted number used? We haven't obviously bargained yet. Was there a figure that was used to say, okay, this is what we're gonna use as a proposed raise, proposed increase
For the,
for teacher salary?
Currently, we just kept it the same,
Okay,
rolled the
okay.
same.
Yeah.
We just rolled the same increase
Mm.
that was contractually obligated the past 4 years.
in the past, we've done with just step. But given this budget here, I thought that would be a little naive.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question.
And that's the $1.1 million. It's just that 1 year reflection of that increase across the stuff and.
Right, and right, it's where people are on the step, so you might have them concentrated in different steps.
Sure.
So that's really more the impact, overall impact of
Right.
our current makeup of the unit.
Reality's hard to swallow sometimes.
It is, Julie and I've been in misery together.
And we've been,
Commiserating
looking-
together.
uh,
Well, yeah,
Karen's been great. We've sat and we've literally gone through this line by line.
well, I have where, we started and it was 1,172,000 was our gap. And we brought it down just
Hmm.
as best we could.
Keep going.
Yeah.
You're not done
You know,
yet.
again, that's, what I want to point out is we've reduced to the point where we will see an effect on next year. There will be an increase next year because some of that.
Well, and again, if we can get some attrition and salaries start leveling back up to the step 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, not put at the end of the step, that will give us some breakage and we can put some of these supplies back in without feeling a great impact. If we have another year like this where we don't have that, then yes, we're gonna fill it again next year. So like I say, the auditor says a budget is at best a best guesstimate, and that's what we have going here,
So by eliminating one of the pre-K classes, making that the one that is funded, through the state, and bringing the elementary classes back to 2 sections and making such an adjustment in the high school, will that address that $680,000 gap that we've got?
that will address the biggest bulk of it,
Okay.
where I feel I can then look at our ERS and perhaps our debt service and get us to
To that,
Right. So I think really we'd be looking at, we said 5, possibly 6 positions. It's really just gonna be the nuance of, 'cause people are at different rates, so.
Right.
So it's important to remember that newer teachers who are hired on the lower steps. So generally, when we budget for a new position, we might budget at step 5.
about step 5.
But,
I used to budget step 1, that'll get you every time.
but the reality is that some of these people are not on step 5, they're lower. So some may be lower, some may be higher, depending where they are, and which areas we reduce at. So, at the high school, we have departments with 10 years tracks in seniority in those departments. So, depending on where those efficiencies lie and where those really kind of, for lack of a better term, the best areas to
do that.
with the least amount of impact, right, to programming is going to depend on really how much reduction.
But the three positions that we're looking at, bringing them back to 2 sections and reducing the pre-K, those are those positions that we added in.
Yes.
Yes. Essentially,
Right,
at least at the elementary. 'cause we-
Right,
I know
right.
It's not apples. and
right.
oranges.
In essence, right, there were 3 teaching positions added at the elementary, so there would most likely be 3 to come from elementary, at least 2 from the high school. And Karen is still doing, once we kind of work with Mr. Switzer to look at those possibilities, to present to the board for high school, then Karen can really start working those numbers and we'll need to look at then. Can she, again, we're still looking at some other reductions in a few areas to tighten things up, but it'll be, if we don't have any attrition in the meantime, it will mean some austerity. It will be a little different than the past few years because we've had the benefit of the ARP money and, being, comfortable. And, we'll have to be very careful to not overspend because we won't have some cushions built in.
Karen, on the revenue side of the property taxes, that is the proposed 23-24. Is that an estimate or is that
That's,
a known number?
that's the known number.
Okay.
And the backup I gave you is the actual. I go on to the New York State, real property. They have the whole calculation right there. You
Okay.
put in your numbers and it does math for you. I have a spreadsheet, but yeah, that's our number.
I only asked because of the reappraisal. My taxes went up. Why don't we get more?
Yeah, well, now that it's out at 100%, this should be just fine, but
Yeah.
when we had the different rates that your equalization rates were.
Yeah.
You could say we're going at a decrease of 2% and somebody go up 1% because of their equalization rate, but
Right.
now that everybody's at 100%,
Yeah.
yes. That makes it a little easier for me.
Trying to see if there's more money to be squeezed into the bowl.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Right. And so this number up here for foundation aid, we are fully funded with that amount. So
Yeah,
we
that
don't anticipate that will be going up unless they change the calculation.
All I wanted it for not to go down, so I was like,
Yeah.
8,000, that was a nice little bonus there. So.
So we were fortunate that we had that increase.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So one of the things, just to let you know, the team, we all met, just a little while ago. We had a working dinner and, we talked about, in light of this, really kind of, looking at going on an austerity budget right now and really looking at, not funding anything that's not essential, at this point and, true need, not a want, really just looking at just tightening up our spending. And so tomorrow I will be, sending out a note, just letting everybody know that we're just looking at a lot of districts stop that spending in December, so, we're a little late in the game, but we're gonna, March is here and most people should have what they need and what they're looking at, and so we can, tighten up a little bit there. This is something that I wanted to present to you, so we will, be working on letting the unions vote, just kind of letting them know where we stand as well, what we're looking at.
Seems we have a lot to digest before next week.
Yeah.
So I will, if you're okay with it, I know we talked about having budget workshops, but I don't, we really can't wait. So if we were looking at a reduction, we need to notify, potential, teachers, faculty, staff, at least in the WADA contract, I'm not sure what it is, and we'll see it, but she doesn't have one, but in WADA, they have April first. So this is something that we really need to get down to the bottom of, so I think we would want to put that on as a discussion point
for the end of the meeting.
on the agenda for Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think if needed, depending on what we were doing, we may want to have some tentative dates, for the end of March. if we-
Yep.
Thank you for all the work that you did getting this ready. I know it was not an easy task.
And a tough one, and, I do know that this had taken longer than our past budgets. I know normally we just roll right through it, but I will give a lot of credit to Michelle and Damian and Mark and Julie, just really trying to give me all the numbers I need. Not just giving me numbers, but like looking at every single expense that we have, and I think that has been missed in the past. And so maybe it did take, and I was getting a little anxious and saying, I've never been this late before, but I feel so good in the fact that I know that we have covered as best everything that we know is coming down the pike. And I think that's really important for the board to be aware that there's nothing that, no stone's gone unturned.
Right, I think hopefully we'll be at, for lack of a better term, a baseline now,
Yes.
really, that we know, I think there'll be less support this year. I would like to thank Karen because, I think we've all been in the position, on the team at different times where, things have come up that have not been budgeted. They might have been budgeted and she might have had numbers, but they weren't quite accurate. And so, and then on top with